So, how does a small business grow an Instagram following community that gets 8 to 10% engagement on every single post when the average is 1 to 3% if you're lucky? Stay tuned to find out how the Bookish Puff, a book reviewer in Charleston, South Carolina, did just that. So you want to get a little nerdy about your Instagram page and
Sure.
talk some numbers and stuff. So I know a little bit about it, but can you tell me sort of, what your audience size is like and your engagement is like, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I currently have a little over 4.3K followers. My average engagement rate is between 9 and 10%, which is awesome because typically,
Astronomical. And yes,
so
it's huge.
typically you see, between like 1 and 3%. But I made a really good point about, like I said, it's about creating quality
Hmm.
versus quantity. I was like told this early on when I started Instagram, and it was like the best advice I've ever been given in my life. And it was, you're not Beyonce, you can reply to comments. And I think
Yeah.
that's such like a huge part of why I have such good engagement.
Hmm.
It's because I really try to make a point to reply to as many people as I can and really engage with people like intentionally. Like I don't
Yes.
just comment like cool random emoji.
Yeah.
I really take time to build relationships with other bloggers I admire and build relationships with the people who follow me. If they're like commenting on all my stuff and like giving me a ton of love, like I always make sure to comment and I always make sure to really engage with them because to me, it's like those are the people that are going to stick around
Hmm.
for the long haul versus like if you are getting a ton of followers but you don't engage with them or you don't get engagement, those numbers naturally are going to fall off because they always tend to mass follow
Yeah.
accounts, and then they're going to go through and they're going to be like, well, who's this person? I don't remember following them.
That's a good
And
point.
then just leave. So
And I would imagine that you probably have built a following or a not like for like kind of thing, but you built a relationship with other bloggers and other people because you're doing the same thing on their accounts as well, right?
exactly. Yeah. I think that a lot of people in any sort of like either business or community, anything, you're going to look at other people in your industry
Hmm.
as competition. And for me, it's like we're all so different. And it's really like you need to focus on yourself and your brand and nurture that. But also, these other people that, some could see as competition are really just other pillars in the community that you're in. And it's really important to reach out to them and build those relationships and build those connections. And honestly, it's like how I get a lot of leads with like publishers. Like if I need a contact or if I see a book that's coming out, I'm really interested, I'll reach out to one of my other friends who is a blogger and I'll be like, hey, do you have a contact for so and so? And they're like, oh, yeah, let me email them for you. Like, I'll happily pass on that info. If there is a blogger I really admire or I'm inspired by them and they have like a huge following, I still make a point of commenting on their stuff and making a point to, and it is an intentional comment because then the people who are enjoying their content are going to see what I'm leaving.
Hmm.
You'd be like, oh, what's this girl about? Like, that was a really refreshing comment, or she had a really good point, or wow, I totally agree with what she was saying. And it's really important to just remember, like, no matter what business you're in, it's still a community of people.
But the important thing I think that you said and that you do, and everybody watching this should understand too, is that you're intentional about it. It's not just going on to another person or, making a list saying I need to do 10 comments today on 10 different accounts. It's intentionally making those comments and engaging with value in mind. They connect with you and they go to find out about you. They're not going to do that if you're going on there, like you said before, a random comment with an emoji or something. That's just kind of a throwaway. So, being intentional and engaging with that intent, I think is something that everybody watching should really remember when they're reading these advice columns or these blog posts that say, you know, you need to comment on 10 accounts per day and do this per day. There's more to it. There's a little bit more detail to it. And there's more human aspect to those bits of advice as well. I do advocate for, I've seen people that say nobody really wants to know about your personal life. They want to know about your product. They want to know about the service that you provide. I certainly don't agree with it. And I certainly think that you and I are, you're on the same page with that in terms of you don't just talk about books. You also provide information about the different things that you're doing outside of it as well. But so my question would be is, what type of content on your Instagram account do you think gets the best results, gets the most reaction and engagement from your audience?
With my Instagram, the way I work is every single post that I do, I don't think it's so much the content of the photo, because like we discussed, I really try to keep like the similar vibes, similar feelings throughout all of them. Every single post I do, I try to make it where they can respond to a question or respond to something within the text of the post. And I always try to put that at the top. Mm-hmm. The post. So for like, if I post a book review, I will always ask, like, have you guys read this one? What did you think? What were your thoughts? Or if it's like a book about time travel, I'll say at the top, I'll be like, if you could time travel to any decade, like which decade would you go to? And that just sort of creates the conversation all across the board.
And you do it before you start talking about anything else, right? But it's a relevant question to what you're posting about, but you do it before you get into the details of the book.
It's like, I'm guilty of this. Everybody's guilty of this, especially on, really any social media. Most of us aren't going to sit there and look at a post and read through a wall of text. Instead, It's like, put that at the question at the top. Mm-hmm. And then put your answer below that, or the relevant content below that. And so people will read the answer, but then they're going to scroll down to comment. Yeah. And as they're scrolling down, they're reading your post. And so I also make a point of not going crazy with a wall of text on Instagram. That's why I created my blog. I stick to longer form content on the blog. Nice. So I really try to narrow it down and pare it down when I'm doing book reviews on Instagram, because my thought process is, if they want a longer form book review, they can go to my blog, they can go to my Goodreads account. I have so many other avenues that they can visit. And I also think it's a really good way to direct people to those avenues if they want it. I really try to just make that a point no matter what I'm posting on Instagram. I always think about the platform I'm on and making sure that the content I'm putting there is appropriate for that platform.
There's two really great things that you just said. One, as a tip, if you're trying to engage and you're asking questions, having it in the very beginning of your post. Because I'm guilty of it, and I've seen it plenty of times, is that you kind of either, that's all you put, which sometimes does not get engagement, or you put it at the very bottom. So when they see that wall of text, they could very easily be like, I'm going to graze through this, and that I'm going to graze, and then I'm going to glaze. I'm going to glaze over, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing too is just a general thing to remember is kind of, if your content doesn't match the platform, then it's not going to work as well. And so another question that I would have for you with that is, was your engagement always great to begin with? Or did it grow over time? For folks who are saying, well, I'm asking questions and I'm not really getting a lot of people who are engaging with me.
Yeah, I think that obviously if you're new to any form of any platform, there's going to be a learning curve. So you're going to figure out like what works for you, what your sort of vibe is, what kind of content you want to share, everything. And it is something that over time you will see growth as you start to become comfortable with that platform. And so for me, like I said, I started off with like no filters, nothing fancy, slapping it on, say, here's what I'm reading, and then maybe like one or two hashtags. And then I would scroll through other people's, like through other hashtags, and then I would start to get inspired by some of these other accounts and I would look at what they were doing, and would never directly copy, but you do get inspired by those people and you go, hey, that's really cool what they're doing. Like, that's a great idea. I should do something similar. And then after that, it's just sort of inspiration comes on its own from there. Even if you're not asking a question every single day, include something meaningful or intentional to your audience. If you're somebody who owns a travel agency and you're posting these beautiful travel photos, like, don't just put the location. Tell me like why this is such a great place to travel to. Maybe share some tips that you learned like while traveling there, or like cool places to eat there. Like, create something that's going to be meaningful to the people who are following you, and from there, like, the engagement and the growth will happen. And also a huge thing is constantly switching up the hashtags you're using and making sure that they're relevant to the post that you're sharing. Like, don't put hashtag book review on a photo or a post that isn't a book review, and just
don't make a list and copy and paste it or something.
I plan everything out. I really try to. And when I'm doing with that, as intentional as I am with the content, I'm being even more intentional with the hashtags I'm using. I try to make sure that they're appropriate for the image I'm sharing, and I also make sure that they're relevant to the post. But I do think that the algorithm, if you're using the same hashtags over and over and over, and naturally they're going to think you're spam.
Yeah.
If you're using the same 5 hashtags every single day and you're posting 2 times a day, they're going to mark your account as spam, and then you're going to go through something called a shadow ban. And when people look at those hashtags, your posts won't even be there. So it's like you might as well not use hashtags at all at that point. So my biggest tip is like maybe use like, between like 2 to 4 unique hashtags for that post.
Do you only use 2 to 4 or 5, or do you try to get all 30 in that you can?
So it really depends. I definitely say, I typically tell people 8 or more is like the golden amount. Any less than that, and it's going to be very hard for people to see your content. I just say my rule of thumb is 2 to 4 unique ones total.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you say unique, you're talking about something specific to your business and locality, or
to my business and to that image. I recently posted a review for The Invisible Life by Addie LaRue, or The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by B.E. Schwab. So I made sure in my hashtags to put hashtag The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, hashtag B.E. Schwab, and then I also included the hashtag for the publisher, and basically the publishing house, and just things that are very specific to that book. It was like a book of the month edition, so I made sure to put hashtag book of the month, just stuff that's hyper specific to that image, because if people are looking through that hashtag,
if there's intent,
it makes sense.
Yes.
But also using some of those smaller hashtags and using those very specific ones really helps with the algorithm, making sure you're fitting into those niche areas of content. So if you're using something more broader, like blogger, hashtag blogger, you're competing with millions of other people. Whereas if you put hashtag Charleston blogger or hashtag book blogger, the algorithm is recognizing, and Instagram is recognizing, that you're from that area, or that you specifically talk about books. And when people are looking for book recommendations, or if they're looking to travel to Charleston, they're going to be able to find your account and refer to your account for future content.
And I think the theme that sort of runs through all of this, and you've said it and I've said it, is being intentional. The next question I'm going to ask you is probably still intentional, because intentional in the look and aesthetic and the feel of your account, intentional in terms of the content that you're providing people. intentional in terms of the comment and engagements that you're doing, and even down to being intentional in terms of the hashtags that you use. The first one is, with all of this discussion about being intentional, do you have a really good understanding of who your audience is? And I'm talking sort of persona, like specific, whether they're male, female, etc.
It's really a mix of intuition and hard data. My account is set up as a business account. And again, if anybody's trying to run their account as a business, work as a company, make sure you have that, because that way you can see the hard data, the analytics. So I know I have a large audience that is female. A lot of them are on the East Coast, mainly in New York. And then I also have a lot of followers in California, Texas, and the UK. And part of that's important because that lets me know when my followers are active. So when they are online. And with that, I try to make sure that I'm sharing stories, but also making sure my feed content falls into place during a time that makes sense for everybody. So for me, I try to post around the 9 a.m. area, because it's a lot of people on the West Coast are going to be just waking up, getting their coffee, settling, just sort of maybe just getting into bed and doing their scroll through. And then a lot of people on the East Coast in New York are going to be, maybe sitting down for the day with their cup of coffee, and they're going to catch up on the last bit of news before they dive into work. And then the people over in the UK are on their lunch break. And then as far as their persona and who my audience is, again, it all goes back to sharing things that I genuinely enjoy. I always say, I'm not going to share anything that I wouldn't want to see. So I think that having a good awareness of that and knowing that, and I also do make sure when people follow me, I click and see what their accounts are looking like. And I always look at people who comment regularly, like what they're into. And also a lot of my audience are going to be people that would be friends with me in real life.
Being consistent, helpful, and posting the content that she would want to see as a fan of her own industry. Providing an on-brand experience and interactive content that her fans have come to expect, and above all, being intentional, is really the highlight and at the core of how she's grown such a great community of engaged fans and followers. A quality over quantity approach has built the know, like, and trust factor with the Bookish Puff and her audience. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my interview with Alicia Valverde of the Bookish Puff. If you like the content that you've seen, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, also select the notifications button so you know when the next one comes out. It really helps a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.